And our speaker has worked for more than a decade across automotive retail, including auto dealerships, also worked for OEMs and in sales, market development, logistics, and regional management. And today he's Autosled Senior Vice President of OEM and Government Relations. I'm very pleased to welcome Bart Schuster. Hey, Bart. Thanks very much.
How would you like me on?
So we'll have a quick presentation, and then we'll do a couple minutes of questions. The stage is yours.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And thank you, by the way, for a tremendous event. I'm so happy that we were able to attend. So why do OEMs choose Autosled? So as was mentioned, one of the things that we truly love is calamity. We like calamity and we like disruption in the network, because the one thing that we do know is the one pressure valve relief point, no matter what it is, whoever's shipping the vehicle, whatever OEM or even dealer for that matter, is always truck. Right? There's a finite amount of rail, there's a finite amount of ro-ro. So, all the carriers in the room, we are basically the safety valve to ensure that this car flow, right, this logistics continues to work. So for us at Autosled, one of the tremendous benefits that we have is we have unlimited capacity. And I'll get into that in a number of registered, vetted, and wonderful partners that we've grown with and earned over the years, many of which has been fantastic for us because they've all been here. Right, we've run into so many of our carrier partners and got to meet them face to face, which is something that we don't get to do. So moving along on that is tackling surges, abnormal allocations, right? We know that many of our manufacturers and manufacturers in general have a lot of pressure points and milestones that they have to hit throughout the year, one of which being quarter closes, physical year end, right? There's fleet activity is coming on again as we kind of continue to grow out of COVID. And these can create capacity issues for asset-based carriers, who are a tremendous and necessary needed part of the supply chain universe. But for us, it allows us that very dynamic level to be in aid of assistance in areas where, things coming, right? Jeremy had mentioned that it will be the perfect world where we know every vessel is going to show up. We know when every train's going to show up, but all of us know that in many circumstances, that's not the norm. And then fast deliveries, right? At the end of the day, manufacturers continue to make money by selling cars, and getting cars from that final point of rest to getting them to dealerships so that it's a sellable asset is critical. For us, over a good amount of time, we're averaging a rather substantial and I would consider to be very impressive, again, as a result of our carrier partners, of 2.9 days delivery on an average length of haul of almost 500 miles. Servicing challenging areas is another benefit that we can provide to OEMs. And the reality is that we know 9-car haulers don't want to load 9 cars going to 9 different locations. And that's quite all right. We know that there's very challenging locations in areas where if the small dealers don't get their vehicles, they don't turn the inventory. Not turning inventory means they're not earning more inventory. Right, so we want to make sure that even the smallest dealership in the smallest city in the smallest town in America is getting their vehicles as quickly as possible, that they've got inventory to sell and they have the better opportunity to aid the manufacturer, right, in earning more. We don't have friendship dues, we don't have subscriptions, we have nothing. My saying in general is you'll use us and you'll love us, and if you don't love us, you'll lose us. Fortunately, our retention rate among customers in general has been tremendous, but again, that comes as a result of our internal workings, an overgrown sense of urgency, and how we're always going to take care of the customer. And then equally important is how do we take care of our carriers, who are people that we need and respect and really make us better. And then insurance. Insurance is already a critical thing. Nobody ever wants to have a problem, but when you have a problem, obviously we are certainly in a position to make sure that those damage claims are handled expeditiously so that we have a car that, again, is saleable. So this is, I wanted to put this up. The little dots you see, which may be a little bit difficult, these are shipments of multiple units that were delivered to locations. The main reason to have this up is to show that we'll serve anybody going anywhere, right? And in many circumstances, this can be a tremendous supplement to other activities that are going on within the network. I don't know how I'm doing on my 5 minutes, but I've got one more data and analytics slide, so get ready for this one. All right. Tender to lot exit. It depends on how you're measured and it depends on how your OEM is measuring. But again, continuously being expeditious in the time it takes to get a vehicle from tender to yard exit. The upper right with the average distances shows that we're not just hauling final mile product, right? We will travel long miles to deliver cars, especially with some of the disruptions. The Panama Canal created a host of problems for us, and having vehicles show up in areas that they weren't. The Baltimore situation ran a lot more smoothly than most of us thought. The last couple months, we've racked up a couple miles, which I think is a nice milestone. And then most importantly, the total transporters. This is the active amount of transporters that are within Autosled's network. These are registered and vetted carriers that meet our qualifications, which obviously will meet that of our partners, OEM and otherwise. And then the last thing, and the most important thing in the world, and I can't expect anybody to figure out why that bottom right quadrant is so dynamic, but that's what every single Autosled customer is, a big smile on their face and very happy. That's my 5-minute presentation.
Thank you so much, Bart. So again, great to get that insight into this innovation. We'll just take a few minutes of questions. We can see with the audience, but I wanted to just kick that off. So where are areas that you as Autosled have identified where OEMs are repeatedly needing help or struggling to deliver new units?
So I think there's a couple things. Just as a result of business in general, and actually Jeremy had mentioned this, when we have vehicles that are showing up in places where they're not typically accustomed to showing up. You know, we had a vessel show up in the West Coast that shouldn't have been in the West Coast. So mobilizing a large number of assets to take care of an immediate problem, right, is a place where we certainly can succeed because, again, we can leverage that carrier base that is based coast to coast. And then the other thing is really kind of inventory surges. And those are really wonderful for us. Again, contract carriers do a wonderful job and do what they need to do, but at some point a contract carrier is fixed. We've got 100 trucks, we've got 200 trucks, and you can run them so many hours with so many drivers, excusing mechanical issues and things of that nature, right? We're always on the ready. So we can be really a tremendous backstop to any kind of OEM's need in areas of uncertainty, surges, physical year ends, which I'd said, or even quarter closes when they've got to hit those numbers and hit those metrics.
Yeah, and we've heard examples throughout the event, whether that's a software issue or a quality hold, but those surges, as we say, are not going away. I have one more question, but if there is any question that anyone from the audience wanted to pose to Bart, then we're happy to take it. We have a mic at the hand.
There are some bright lights.
Yeah, I've been saying it all the time. No one believes it until they get on stage, just how bright they are. Last question in from my side, Bart. So can you talk us how is Autosled able to ramp up at a new location? How can you do that quickly?
So I think I'll do two things. I may have talked about the tremendous amount of carrier partners. So that's certainly a part of it. The other thing is really internally at Autosled and our operations team. So I run, in addition to the sales division, I also am responsible for a smaller subset of the operations team, which is our OEM division. And within the OEM division, we have obviously a lead and then several people underneath. So as blindsided or as things change in networks and things show up in different places, or again, surges and things of that nature, what we're able to do with our partners is to have an immediate call and say, this is what we see happening, this is what we see coming. Then with my team, we start to formulate a plan. It was mentioned certainly by both of the prior speakers, Jeremy and Dan, we can get a little bit of notice to know when something's happening. Then my team will immediately begin to reach out to our partners that are either domiciled in locations where we know vehicles are going to be, right, and get a big understanding of what is our availability and how quickly can we have 500 cars moved, 900 cars moved on spot or backup or what do you want to call it. But with moments, hours notice, I have a team that can put 100 phone calls out and say, all right, Bart Trucking, we see these units coming in. Within these units coming in, this is where they're going, what can you take? And then we'll make that round of phone calls. So by the time I get a VIN list, I can have for the better part of 75% of that already pre-assigned. And then I say, okay, vehicle or vessel or train is supposed to be into its final stop. Processing, if it's a rail ramp, there's no processing, you just get it off. And they'll be ready within this 24 to 48 hour window. I expect you to be on site. And in many circumstances, we can literally, as they're coming off the train and getting checked in and parked, we have the opportunity, once we build the load for the carrier, optimize that to ensure they're taking the most cars going into the direct place, get them out sometimes in same day.
Well, fantastic. Well, Bart, thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
with us. Pleasure to have you here.
I appreciate it. Thank you.